About a month ago, I looked at my analytics on YouTube and I saw something that surprised me, and it really shouldn't have. 9 out of the 10 most watched videos over the course of the last 90 days were 10 Things episodes. With that in mind, we made the absolute no-brainer decision to bring it back. So, here are 10 common fish keeping mistakes that'll harm your fish. You hear it all the time. Don't overfeed your fish. But why? Well, if you're new to fish keeping, you might think, well, they'll eat too much and get fat. Being overweight isn't good for fish. Or 45-year-old men. Well, that's true, but it's not just that. Fish are gluttons, and some of them will eat constantly. If they're eating constantly, what does that mean they're also doing? Yep. They're constantly pooping. Fish waste is the largest contaminant to the water in a fish tank. Just think about it. They're swimming around in their own toilet. That should be all that needs to be said. But there's more. If you're constantly throwing food in, there's no way the fish will eat it all. Some of that food is going to sink down to the bottom and get stuck behind rocks or plants. Uneaten food rots and will contaminate the water just as bad as the fish waste does. Bottom line is, to keep a healthy aquarium and healthy fish, you have to be responsible when it comes to how much food you're feeding them. Monitor your fish as you feed them. Give them enough that they'll consume it all in 30 seconds to a minute. Do that a couple times a day and your fish will thank you for it. And hey, the bright side is, you'll even save a little money because you're not wasting all that food. Everyone wins.
Quarantining fish is one of the parts of the hobby that is no fun. Who wants to buy fish and not put them in their tank right away? No one. No matter how much you trust the fish store that you're buying your fish from, there's always the risk that there may be something wrong with them, and you won't even know it. You won't know it till it's too late. You put the new fish in, and a week later, your fish start acting funny, and they may even start dying. Next thing you know, you're dumping in a bunch of medications, doing frantic water changes, and making yourself crazy trying to figure out what's going on. Then you realize, oh crap, there must have been something wrong with the fish I got last week. The good news is this is easy to avoid with a quarantine tank. A quarantine tank doesn't have to be a big fancy tank with expensive lights and fancy decorations. Something like a 10-gallon tank with a sponge filter will be just fine, as long as they're smaller fish. Put the new fish in the quarantine tank and just keep a close eye on them. Monitor their behavior, their eating habits, and their appearance. It's not difficult to tell if they're off a little bit. Some people even medicate the fish just to be on the safe side with medications like General Cure and Super Ick Cure from API. If you can afford it, then it's a great idea, but it's not something you have to do. Monitor them for as long as you can stand it. 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks is even better, but just keep a close eye on them to make sure they're okay. All it takes is one time for you to get new fish and have them kill your entire tank of fish that you already have for you to learn your lesson.
I know this seems like an easy one, but you'd be surprised how often it happens. People are at the fish store and they see a fish that they have to have and they buy it without doing any research as to the fish's temperament or aggression. It's an easy mistake. See fish, like fish, buy fish. We've all done it. The problem is you don't realize it's a problem till it's too late. The fish goes in the tank, starts killing everything else in there, or gets killed by the other fish. It's a simple problem to avoid though. When you're looking into the fish, ask the employees at the store if it'll be compatible with the fish you already have. If they don't know, pull out your phone and look into it. If you still can't figure it out, just put a hold on it till you figure out whether or not it's okay to go in your tank. I know it's hard. I get it.
When you bought your hang on the back filter, the instructions said to change your cartridge once a month. It makes sense. The sponges are usually really thin and the carbon doesn't last very long in them. But simply pulling the cartridge out and replacing it could ruin everything in your aquarium. A healthy aquarium has a buildup of bacteria that helps to keep the water healthy for the fish. This bacteria grows on surfaces in your aquarium and sponges hold tons of it, so when you remove it all, that wonderful bacteria is going out with it. This is a simple issue to avoid though. If your hang on the back filter has 2 cartridges, just replace one at a time, say every 2 weeks. If your filter just has 1 cartridge, just swap it out when you're not doing any other maintenance. What I mean is when you're doing water changes, cleaning the glass and cleaning your decorations, you're removing tons of this bacteria, leaving your filter as the primary place that it remains. When you do this type of maintenance, leave the filter alone. Wait a couple weeks for the bacteria to build up again, then replace the cartridge. Another strategy is to use a live bacteria replacement product. This is a great way to replace the bacteria that you just removed with the cartridge. These products aren't only for new tanks though. We'll put a link in the description of some of our favorites and you can just go check them out.
Look at me. It's pretty obvious I am not a guy that shies away from carbohydrates. One of my favorite sources of carbohydrates is bread. I mean, who doesn't love bread? There's nothing better than bread fresh out of the oven, soft and fluffy. But what happens if you leave bread out on the counter for a while? Starts to get a little stiff and a little stale, but not only that, after some time, it'll start growing mold. Not only is it not an enjoyable experience to eat that bread, but it can also make you sick. Well, fish food is the same way. Make sure you always keep your food in its sealed package. And some foods even recommend that it be refrigerated. Don't feed your fish stale or rotten food. You wouldn't want it and neither will they. Oh, and don't be cheap with frozen foods. If you thaw out a cube and don't use it all, don't refreeze the uneaten food. It sounds silly, but people do it. Ugh.
Overpopulating an aquarium is a very common mistake for new fish keepers. They keep seeing new fish that they have to have and they just keep adding more and more. There's nothing cooler than a tank that has a lot of activity and chaos. It's a lot of fun, but at what cost? More fish means more food. More food means more waste. More waste means more bio load, and sometimes the bacteria in your tank can't keep up with it. The bacteria loses its hold on the ammonia and crashes. Then you're in big trouble. Actually, your fish are in big trouble. If you have several fish in the tank, they're all getting along and there's a nice balance, you might be better off leaving it alone. If you're desperate for more fish, maybe it's time to get another tank rather than putting more fish in a tank you already have. Welcome to MTS, Multiple Tank Syndrome. It happens to the best of us. We're happy to have you in our club. Your membership card should show up in the mail in about 2 to 3 weeks.
One of the common themes of this list is problems that have to do with bacteria and bioload. We all know how important beneficial bacteria is in our aquarium, and there's a super common mistake that so many of us make in the beginning. It sucks because it's a mistake we make, but we actually think we're doing the right thing, and that's keeping an aquarium too clean. There's so much life happening in our aquariums, and when we over-clean, so much of that life goes down the drain. Think about it, how many rivers and lakes have you swam in? When you go under, that water looks pretty murky, doesn't it? I know there's tons of areas where the water is crystal clear, and when you go under, it's almost like you're floating in air. The water's so clear, you can't even see it, but give me a break. I'm trying to make a point here. You know what I'm talking about. You've been in water that's just nasty. I won't do it. I'm too much of a diva. The point is, we've all seen those nasty bodies of water that almost look like mud puddles. but they have fish in them that are thriving. Your aquarium doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes it's a good thing to have a little bit of stuff going on in there, and the fish will love it.
Decorating an aquarium is a way for us to express ourselves and create an underwater art project. When we create that masterpiece, it's only natural for us to want to install the brightest lights possible to show off our work. It's totally understandable, but sometimes it's not best for our fish. There are tons of fish out there that appreciate light being more on the dimmer side, like discus, betas, and even frontosas. Sure, they like the light, but sometimes they like to escape it and just relax. With betas and discus, it's good to have areas of the tank that are shaded with large plant leaves or decorations. Frontosas instinctually are deep water fish that hang out way down in caves in Lake Tanganyika. This is why if you create little rock formations or caves, you'll see them hiding in those. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have a light on in your tank. It means you should come up with a schedule where the lights are full blast, maybe a little dimmer, and then off. This will simulate natural sunlight coming and going throughout the day. Through trial and error, you'll come up with a good system that keeps the fish happy and allows your plants to get the light they need. Everyone's happy.
Remember 5 years ago when it was all the rage to have these huge, elaborate rock formations in our aquariums? This was particularly popular in the African cichlid world. Lake Malawi and Tanganyika are very rocky, so we wanted to create an environment that's as close to what these fish would have experienced in the wild. This looks really cool, but there's a downside to this that not many of us even really thought of back then. If you have a 75-gallon aquarium and you put 100 pounds of rocks in there, think about how much of that water is now out of the tank being replaced by the rocks. It's not crazy to think that your 75-gallon aquarium may have just become a 40-gallon aquarium, or even less. When we talk about tank size for fish, we're not just talking about free swimming area. We're talking about an adequate volume of water needed to keep the fish healthy and thriving. Not only that, but when you fill the aquarium full of a bunch of decorations, you are taking away some of that free swimming space that the fish really do need. Bottom line is, make your tank beautiful. Make it an area for your fish to thrive in and create your masterpiece. Just don't remove half the water when you do it.
I'm not a Howie Mandel, but I'm pretty picky when it comes to keeping my hands clean. Hand sanitizer is a big part of my life, but my hands aren't always clean, and I bet yours aren't either. And we go right over and stick our hands right in our tanks. Pay attention to what you have on your hands. Things like lotions and colognes can introduce all kinds of things into your aquarium that can poison your fish. Don't go out and work on your garden, then go right to your aquarium and think, well, it's all natural. There's fertilizers, pesticides, and all kinds of stuff that come along with it. Just take a second to make sure your hands are clean before you go putting your hands in your tank, especially little nano tanks. It would be a shame to kill all of your fish because you had some kind of Victoria's Secret lotion on your hands.